This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
The White House released segments of President Bush's speech in which he said that 8,000 soldiers will be withdrawn from Iraq by February 2009.
Bush is expected to announce that he will be sending 4,500 soldiers to Afghanistan by January 2009.
هذه واحدة من زيارات تكررت للرئيس الأمريكي إلى العراق.
Bush has visited Iraq on several occasions. Here on foreign land, he found someone from his administration to welcome him. Bush found time to inspect his forces in Iraq, which now are 146,000 strong. Bush, whose term in office is about to end, decided that he will decrease the number of American soldiers in Iraq. He said that he will withdraw 8,000 of them by February of 2009. The move has been recommended by his commanders on the ground under the justification that the violence has decreased. However, there is another side to this story. The actual decrease of the American forces in Iraq will not happen during Bush's term in office. Rather, it will take place after the next president takes office.
فإرث بوش في العراق أو كرة النار على ما يذهب البعض من وصف قد تنتقل إلى
Therefore, Bush's legacy in Iraq, or the ball of fire, might be handed to the Democratic presidential candidate. In this case, this man will have to test his rhetoric on the ground by withdrawing all combat forces from Iraq within 16 months. However, if Bush's legacy is inherited by the Republican candidate, then the ball of fire will find someone to keep it going.
لكن بوش الذي يخوض حربا أخرى في أفغانستان شاء أيضا أن يربط
Bush, who has another ongoing war in Afghanistan, wanted to make a link between the two wars. The soldiers that will be taken out of Iraq will be sent to Kabul. This was revealed by the text of his speech, which was released by the White House. According to the Bush administration plan, 4,500 soldiers will be sent to Afghanistan, which will strengthen the arguments of those who have been criticizing his wars.
الذين يرون أنه لم ينتصر في أي منهما.
Bush's critics say that he has not won any of the wars and that he pushed the Americans into a deep quagmire without eliminating the so-called terrorism. They also say that the American administration has not been able to even keep its international alliance together against so-called terrorism. They also argue that Bush's attempts to please NATO allies by sending more troops to Afghanistan have failed. They believe that the Bush administration continues to fight an unwinnable war.
والاستمرار في حرب لا نصر مرتقبا فيها.
Hello there. In what could be his last major speech on the so-called U.S. war on terror, President George Bush has talked of success in Iraq, but the need for reinforcements in Afghanistan. Speaking at the National Defense University in Washington, Bush said U.S. troops would be sent to Afghanistan instead of Iraq.
Here's the bottom line. While the enemy in Iraq is dangerous, we have seized the offensive. Iraqi forces are becoming increasingly capable of leading and winning the fight. As a result, we've been able to carry out a policy of return on success, reducing American combat forces in Iraq as conditions on the ground continue to improve.
Well, claiming success in Iraq, President Bush detailed his program for troop withdrawals.
Pleased to announce the next step forward in our policy of return on success. General Petraeus has just completed a review of the situation in Iraq He and the Joint Chiefs of Staff have recommended that we move forward with additional force reductions, and I agree. Over the next several months, we will bring home about 3,400 combat support forces, including aviation personnel, explosive ordnance teams, combat and construction engineers, military police, and logistical support forces. By November, we will bring home a Marine battalion that is now serving in Anbar province. And in February of 2009, another Army combat brigade will come home. This amounts to about 8,000 additional American troops returning home without replacement. And if progress in Iraq continues to hold, General Petraeus and our military leaders believe additional reductions will be possible in the first half of 2009.
Well, it doesn't really loom large. I mean, President Bush has announced a pullout of about 5.5% of the troops in Iraq. So that's not a really significant pullout. The overall level will remain that at the level at which it was before the big peak in violence that led to the surge. What the president is trying to do, to create as a headline here, is that the surge, the sending of 30,000 troops to Iraq, when there was a big spike in violence in the summers of 2006 and 2007, has been a success. So surge equals success. That's the headline, the narrative he's trying to sell to the American public and to leave as a legacy to the Republican Party, and particularly its nominee for the presidential race, John McCain.
But is this all just a bit of catch-up, Nick? Because the idea of taking troops out of Iraq and then perhaps moving them into Afghanistan, or at least beefing up Afghanistan as well, that idea has been around for a while.
Yeah, well, it has. And in fact, administration sources have been telling the American media they were calling for a much bigger pullout, up to 3 combat brigades from Iraq. They were thinking that would provide a stronger message to the American public, and that it would also free up more resources to focus on Afghanistan. And Afghanistan has come back into the political discourse here, into political life here, mainly through the presidential race. Barack Obama saying that the United States had greatly erred in invading Iraq and should have focused on Afghanistan. And John McCain has come around to that perspective a bit as well, although he's a strong supporter of the surge.
The Al Arabiya bureau chief in Baghdad, our colleague Jawad al-Hattab, escaped death after an explosive device was planted in his car. The driver had called the police to report the presence of the bomb, but the bomb exploded before the security forces reached the car. The car, which was to transport our colleague Jawad al-Hattab from his home to work, was destroyed.
The incident took place in the Salahaya neighborhood in the heart of the residential apartment buildings. An explosive device was planted on the bottom of a car and targeted a media personality in an attempt to assassinate him. Thank God the bomb exploded without hurting anyone. We told citizens that they must pay attention to their cars, especially military and civilian figures. They must pay attention to these kinds of things and report them.
With me from Baghdad is Al Arabiya correspondent Majid Hamid. Majid, we know that our colleague Jawad al-Hattab, the head of the bureau chief in Baghdad, is in the security center to record his testimony. However, is there any new information about this incident and the bureau chief's car explosion?
نعم ما زالت القوات الأمنية تحقق في مكان الحادث وقد رفعت عدد من
Yes, the security forces continue to isolate the area of the incident, and they have taken in a number of people who survived the blast to conduct a criminal investigation. Earlier, the bureau chief, Jawad al-Hattab, arrived here to the Al Arabiya office. Questioning continues with the driver. These are just investigative measures. Then he will return to us safe just as Mr. Jawad did. The latest story is that the explosive device was planted in the car and the driver found it, then told our colleague Jawad al-Hattab about it. As Jawad and other colleagues were informing the security agency about the presence of the device, the car exploded. It may have been that the device was timed to target him. It was placed at the specific place where our colleague Jawad al-Hattab sits when he goes to work.
Did you confirm that this bomb was controlled remotely from a distance?
This is the current story. These kinds of devices can be controlled remotely or they can be timed to go off. Then they could be detonated by calling a cell phone, according to what the security forces and what you heard from one of the security personnel who was present at the site. He warned media and political figures that there is an increase in the number of explosive devices which are targeting these personalities in the Iraqi capital of Baghdad and other places.
Thank you, Majid Hamid.
In Iraq, the parliament resumes session after ending the summer break.
The parliament faces many important and stalled issues, including the election law for provincial councils, which was postponed more than once due to differences over the city of Kirkuk.
The Iraqi parliament, as it enters a new legislative season, faces many important and urgent issues. The Kirkuk issue remains as the main focus and one of the most prominent challenges, which the parliament faces after it failed to pass a local elections law due to the opposition by the Kurdistani Alliance of some articles in the law relating to Kirkuk. The postponing of the elections of provisional councils places the parliament in constitutional complications. The current provisional councils no longer have legitimacy because their terms have ended. The postponing of the Kirkuk elections alone is something that is welcomed by the Arabs and the Turkomans. But the Kurds will not accept this unless Article 140 of the Constitution is applied without adopting a new law for this province. In another challenge, the parliamentary members will attempt to debate the oil law, which has not reached the parliament yet, particularly since there's continued intense debate about oil contracts in the Kurdish region of Iraq, which are being opposed by Baghdad. In addition to Kirkuk and oil, the parliament is up against another challenge that is represented by the security agreement, which is being negotiated with the United States. Before an agreement was reached, the Iraqi parliament speaker, Mahmoud al-Mashadani, said that whoever wants to pass the law that justifies the presence of the occupation forces will not be able to achieve his objective in the parliament dome in Iraq. However, the parliament speaker has his hands tied because some of the alliances inside the parliament may not have the same interests. Iraqi parliament members have to deal with these challenges before the end of their term next year.
In regional news, Iran's first nuclear power plant is about to go online. The Russian company building the facility at Bushehr said technical work will be carried out between December of this year and February of 2008. That will make the startup of the nuclear reactor irreversible. The exact launch date will be determined following high-level talks between Russian and Iranian officials later this month. Earlier this year, nuclear fuel was delivered to the site. Tehran is paying Moscow more than $1 billion to build the plant. Recent strained relations between the United States and Russia are also impacting the nuclear arena. The U.S. State Department disclosed yesterday that President Bush has canceled a civilian nuclear cooperation deal with Russia.
We make this decision with regret. Unfortunately, given the current environment, the time is not right for this agreement. We will reevaluate the situation at a later date as we follow developments closely. And we have said it's not business as usual. It can't be business as usual.
And joining me now in the studio to discuss political developments here and abroad is Hebrew University political scientist Professor Avraham Diskin. Professor Diskin, thank you for coming in this evening.
Thank you for inviting me.
Prime Minister Omar has canceled his planned trip to Syria, to Russia that is, and the Syria track is likely to be placed on hold now. Has Prime Minister Omar finally internalized the fact that he's not going to be in office very many more days?
First of all, I'm not so sure about it, because even if he does materialize his promise to resign, he will still function as a caretaker prime minister, and that can last for quite some time. I think that these decisions has to do with other developments, such as the last news that you just read, about what happens in Syria, Iran, Russia and the United States, etc.
نبحث اليوم في حلقة جديدة من قضايا إفريقية أبعاد زيارة وزيرة الخارجية الأمريكية كوندوليزا رايس لشمال إفريقيا.
Today we are discussing the implications of the visit of the U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice to Northern Africa. The visit, which was to Libya, Tunisia, Morocco, and passing through Algeria, raised many questions. Mainly, why is the American administration putting forth diplomatic efforts in the region at this time? Does this visit have anything to do with the crucial changes in the race for the Arab Maghreb as a strategic region? Or does Rice's visit come only to reaffirm the U.S. presence in the region as the White House is preparing for new tenants? And what is the nature of the issues that Rice brought up in her latest visit? And why? Talks with various Maghreb officials were about combating so-called terrorism as a joint issue. Is this American delusion real, or is the concept of terrorism being promoted as a means to legitimize the powerful presence in the region and achieving various interests there? The following report summarizes the implications of Condoleezza Rice's visit to the Arab Maghreb countries. Afterwards, we will welcome our guests to discuss all the questions being raised. Stay with us.
نرجو أن تبقوا معنا.
4 أيام كانت مدة كافية للجولة التي قامت بها وزيرة الخارجية الأمريكية كوندوليزا رايس.
4 days was enough for the U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice to tour Northern Africa. Her visit to the 4 countries was short, but it revealed something about U.S. policy towards the region. Rice, who visits the region for the last time as the U.S. Secretary of State, came with many issues that are important to the U.S. in the region. The first stop was Libya, trying to put the U.S. ahead in the international race for Libya's natural resources after the sanctions were lifted from it. Officials from both countries said that the visit was aimed at rewarming relations between Tripoli and Washington after Libya was taken off the state sponsor of terrorism list, and also to complete the deals remaining between the 2 countries, especially paying compensation to the families of the victims of the Pan American airline known as the Lockerbie issue, and exploration of Libyan oil fields. These were the 2 main points of discussions between the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi and Rice. As for the other countries, they have unique relations with the United States. Rice comes with a message to these leaders, particularly relating to the area of freedom and human rights, knowing that she understands the human rights situation in these countries. However, Rice's presence in Algiers and Rabat has political implications amidst the continued conflict in the Western Sahara. Washington views this conflict as impeding its plans to combat terrorism and establish a U.S. military base, or AFRICOM. Although the contents of the issues discussed during the U.S. diplomatic official visit differed, her maneuvers reflect America's determination to keep Northern Africa as a part of its fortress.
كجزء من قلاعها.
هاني رسلان كخبير في الشؤون الإفريقية
Mr. Hani Raslan, an expert in African affairs, why did Rice choose to visit Northern Africa as the Bush administration is preparing to leave the White House? Why right now? Why does the tour include most of the Maghreb countries besides Mauritania?
كما أشار قبل قليل زميلي من الجزائر فمحور هذه الزيارة أو الدولة الرئيسية في هذه الزيارة هي
The main purpose of this visit was Libya. As we all know, the United States have elections coming up. The Republican Party wants to highlight some success stories. It wants to point to some symbolic successes here and there, and that its strategy towards the world and the Middle East was successful. Therefore, there is a continued American focus on Libya, and that it represents a model of those countries that the U.S. considers defiant to international law, like how it talks about Iran and North Korea.
كما تتحدث عن إيران وعن كوريا.
Libya is a country or an alternative model where strategic and political changes occurred. According to the US, this was enough to renew relations and have a complete settlement with an exchange of embassies, economic, trade, and cultural exchanges, and the like. Therefore, this visit and this devotion to this type of model is needed during an election season. This is a special case amidst many setbacks of the United States administration in various regions throughout the world. So it wants to take a breath by talking about what it considers a success.
بالحديث عن هذا أو ما تعتبره نجاحا من وجهة نظرها.
After months of unrest and security breaches, the Lebanese city of Tripoli, the capital of the north, has entered a new era. This news comes after the various political, sectarian, and religious factions in Tripoli signed a binding reconciliation document which will help lay the groundwork for the city's social and political stability and security. The head of the Future Party and member of parliament, Saad Hariri, led the reconciliation efforts. The document was signed in the presence of Prime Minister Fouad Siniora.
The reconciliation document, the latest Lebanese development to come out of Tripoli, has less to do with security and more to do with social and political peacekeeping efforts. The document was signed in Tripoli by the various factions, parties, and parliamentarians. It was signed at the residence of the Mufti of Tripoli and North Lebanon Sheikh Malek Sha'ar in the presence of Prime Minister Fouad Siniora.
Tripoli is a unified city, especially with the help of its people, spiritual, and political leaders. The Lebanese state is the high authority and its guarantor, protector, and caretaker of all citizens.
God willing, His Excellency the Prime Minister and us will seek to implement more articles of the documents before Eid al-Fitr holiday. God willing, all of us will spend the Eid in our homes.
The Tripoli reconciliation was the result of efforts launched in the north by Lebanese Member of Parliament Saad Hariri. Hariri met with his political rivals, including the former Member of Parliament Ali Aid and the former Lebanese Prime Minister Omar Karami. Hariri's efforts came after the deteriorating security situation in the north had reached a critical stage and stirred fear at the national, regional, and international levels.
Many alarm bells sounded off in various capitals that were concerned with the Lebanese affairs, warning against the general situation in Tripoli and the spread of fundamentalism and terrorism in particular.
The Tripoli reconciliation has received unanimous approval, with some wanting to apply it to other parts of the country, especially in the capital of Beirut. The lesson to be learned is whether the Tripoli reconciliation is able to withstand regional and international changes, and whether the document can be implemented and applied to other parts of the country, and in a way that can help increase security and political stability. Ilian Shatrin, Dubai TV, Beirut. Sudan's Peace and Development Organization has discussed ways to counter the charges filed by the International Criminal Court's prosecutor, Luis Ocampo. The organization also supported the People of Sudan initiative aimed at resolving the Darfur plight.
The head of the General Assembly for Sudan's Peace and Development Organization and presidential advisor, Dr. Riyad Gaikuk, has rejected the allegations of the international prosecutor Luis Ocampo against the Sudanese president Omar al-Bashir. In addition, the organization commended the Sudanese government on its decision not to hand over any Sudanese citizens to be tried outside the country. It also hailed the integrity and independence of the Sudanese legal system. Moreover, the organization expressed support for the People of Sudan initiative, which was launched by the President of the Republic, Omar al-Bashir. The initiative, which is based on peace agreements in the country, aims at resolving the plight of Darfur.
We came here to praise and voice our support to the People of Sudan initiative, which will help resolve Darfur's plight. This initiative was launched by the people of Sudan, and we are part of the people.
The Peace and Development Organization said that one of the main ingredients of peace and unity is providing necessary services to the people and mending their social fabric. During the meeting, the Peace and Development Organization formed a committee to implement its plans, including a plan to build model villages for the displaced and refugees of Darfur, as well as other projects to help promote stability in the region.
التأكيد على وحدة الوطن رد على كل الكلام.
We're taking a unified stance to counter all the allegations against Sudan. Some are desperately seeking to break the will of the Sudanese people and their aspiration for peace and unity.
Facilitating aid convoys to Darfur, promoting peace and renouncing violence, as well as stopping the bloodshed, alleviating the bitterness of war, mending the fabric of society, and calling for harmony and coexistence among the Sudanese. All these are at the top of the priority list of the Peace and Development Organization.
Meanwhile, the head of Sudan's Peace and Development Organization announced some of his organization's priorities, which include a plan to help build the villages of peace to accommodate the returned displaced residents and refugees of Darfur, as well as providing necessary services to them.
Our organization is exerting efforts and helping other organizations in the field. We are making plans to help unite citizens of Sudan across political, sectarian, tribal, and ethnic affiliations. Our priority is to help all Sudanese people around the country. We need to address their problems and concerns. We also need to promote love and harmony among them. We need to unite as the world is continuing to pursue us, like a hungry predator chasing after its prey. We need to unite so we will not be taken down as we have fallen in the past. We need to stand united in order to face the future. However, we must not unite against a certain ethnic group, government, or a regime.
Oil ministers of Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries started talks in Vienna to review decisions by the Ministerial Monitoring Subcommittee. Last night's session, which met behind closed doors, discussed the output objectives of the last quarter. OPEC President Shakib Khalil told reporters Monday OPEC was to mull over the organization's production cuts. Iran's OPEC representative Mohammad Ali Khatibi said prior to Tuesday's meeting that 10 OPEC members are currently pumping 400 to 500,000 barrels of crude per day on average. Far from Vienna and in oil markets, oil prices slumped close to $100 a barrel, their lowest reading since the start of April.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jess Ganem, a longtime viewer and supporter of Mosaic, World News from the Middle East. This is an extraordinary show that brings you Middle Eastern viewpoints and stories you'll not see on any mainstream channel. Unfortunately, Mosaic is in crisis and needs your help to survive. We're at a critical moment in history, a war being waged on people whom we, as Americans, have so little knowledge of, and in a few months, the direction of that war could change drastically. That's why I'm urging you to call the number on your screen right now and help keep Mosaic on the air. We need to raise $200,000 in the next few months to keep the program on the air through the end of 2008. I know a lot of you have already donated, and I want to thank you very much for that. However, we still have a long way to go. If you haven't yet given a donation, pick up that phone, call the number on your screen right now. You can also log on to linktv.org and make your donation online. Let's keep Mosaic on the air for people committed to a just world. Thank you.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs which connect you to the world.